Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the panel 906 Evidence Based Policies to Build the Future of Agriculture in Canada of the 13th Canadian Science Policy Conference. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue au panel de discussion 906 intitulé Des politiques et des données probantes pour bâtir l'agriculture canadienne de demain dans le cadre de la conférence des politiques scientifiques canadiennes. C'est avec un grand plaisir que j'ai accepté l'invitation du Fonds de recherche du Québec, l'organisateur du panel, d'agir à titre de modératrice pour ce panel. Mon nom est Michel Martin. Je suis directrice senior des services d'aviseurs scientifiques à l'Agence canadienne d'inspection des aliments. Tout d'abord, veuillez noter que le panel est bilingue et s'exprimera dans les deux langues officielles. La traduction simultanée est offerte et donc vous pouvez suivre les discussions dans une des deux langues officielles. I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm coming to you today from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation here in Ottawa. Just a little bit of statistics. Agriculture, the Canadian agriculture and agri-food system employ 2.1 million people, providing 1 in 9 jobs in Canada and generating 139 billion, around 7.4% of Canadian gross domestic product. The success of Canadian agriculture depends heavily on our ability to export to other countries, and Canada is one of the world's largest food exporters in Canada. It exported 75 billion in agriculture and food products. The agriculture and agri-food sector agri-food industry are important drivers in today's economy and identify as one of Canada's key growing sectors post-pandemic. Science is foundational innovations. Since 2001, the establishment of the first agricultural policy framework, a federal territorial and federal provincial territorial partnership, and an underappreciated partnership, agricultural science has increasingly influenced the 4 Canadian agricultural policy. We'll hear about that by Ms. Natasha King, who will present to us where is Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in the negotiation of the 5th agricultural policy. Over the last 20 years, both federally and in the academic world, the capacity in genomics has increased, and Canada has developed strength and is recognized worldwide in agricultural genomics, as revealed by the 3 consultations that were held in September and October by Genome Canada. Federally, there is also the Genomic Research and Development Initiative that has also been foundational to build capacity since 1998 to genomics, including agricultural science. But science is evolving, and the agricultural sector must enter now into the digital world, and progress in science and research related to the development, adaptation, and adoption of artificial intelligence in the agricultural sector. As a matter of fact, the Fonds de recherche du Québec organized an event on November 11 to present a white paper presenting challenges and opportunities for the sector to enter into the digital world. Canada's food system is resilient, but there are some key issues related to climate change that is influencing the performance of the agriculture and agri-food sector. There was clear commitment in the COP26 related to methane reduction and also related greenhouse gases emission in general, and clear target. Also, Canada is committed to increase the international climate change finance to help countries facing the impact of climate change. And this is going to be as well an ongoing work that is going to be affecting the agricultural and agri-food economy as well. In this panel, we will discuss how Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and the Minister of Agriculture, le ministère de l'Agriculture, des Pêcheries et l'Alimentation du Québec have integrated research and development into their policy and how they have established strategic interjurisdictional collaboration. For example, Ms. Kim will discuss the progress and evolution of the previous four policy frameworks over the last 20 years. Mr. Verrette will present an overview of Quebec's Sustainable Agricultural Plan with a focus on the collaboration with the research for its design and implementation. Details will also be given on MAPAC's contribution to the federal provincial territorial collaboration. There will be a discussion by Madame Fontaine on strategic investment by Canada and Quebec in precision agriculture and in research aimed at improving diagnostic and biovigilance capability based on genomics. And finally, there will be a presentation of perspective report release in August 2021 on understanding our past and present for designing the future of Canadian agriculture. Madame Natasha King, ADM Strategic Policy Branch of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Madame Stéphanie Laure-Fontaine, vice-présidente des affaires scientifiques à Génome Québec, Monsieur Al Mussel, directeur de recherche et fondateur d'Agri-Food Economic System et coordonnateur de la recherche à l'Institut des politiques agroalimentaires, et Monsieur Bernard Verrette, sous-ministre adjoint à la transformation et aux politiques bioalimentaires au ministère de l'Agriculture, des Pêcheries et de l'Alimentation du Québec. Je vous souhaite chaleureusement la bienvenue et je suis certaine que nous aurons de bonnes discussions. Je laisserai donc la parole à chacun des 4 panélistes afin qu'ils présentent une revue de leur organisation et leur initiative en 6 minutes, puis je poserai 4 questions aux panélistes et leur donnerai 3 minutes pour répondre. Enfin, il y aura place pour les questions des participants. Commençons tout de suite, puisque nous avons un programme chargé. J'aimerais vous présenter Madame Natasha Kim, sous-ministre adjointe des politiques stratégiques à Agriculture et Agroalimentaire Canada. Auparavant, elle était sous-ministre adjointe déléguée du secteur des politiques stratégiques et du programme à l'immigration, réfugiés, citoyenneté Canada. Natasha Kim a occupé aussi le poste de directrice générale à la Direction générale de l'immigration, ainsi que à IRCC, ainsi que divers postes au bureau du Conseil privé, à Sécurité publique Canada, à Justice Canada et à la Cour suprême du Canada. Je souhaite donc, Madame Kim, vous pouvez commencer.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Marcotte, et bonjour à toutes et à tous. And thank you to les Fonds de Recherche du Québec for hosting this discussion, which brings a spotlight on agriculture. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining this conference virtually from the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I should start by saying that I am not a scientist, which sometimes makes me question my life choices when I see the incredible work that is done by our scientists at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to support the Canadian food system. But as the ADM of the Strategic Policy Branch for the department, hopefully I can still offer some perspectives on the important role of science and innovation in advancing public policy objectives. As mentioned by Madame Marcotte, I will focus my remarks on something that we're currently working on at AAFC with all provinces and territories, the next agricultural policy framework, which is a 5-year framework to support the agriculture and agri-food sector from 2023 to 2028. Depuis la mise en œuvre du premier cadre stratégique pour l'agriculture en 2003, les 4 accords multilatéraux successifs entre les gouvernements fédéraux, provinciaux et territoriaux ont joué un rôle important de soutien et d'orientation pour le secteur agricole et agroalimentaire canadien. Le cadre actuel, le partenariat canadien pour l'agriculture, représente un investissement de 3 milliards de dollars. Le prochain cadre stratégique s'appuiera sur les réussites du partenariat, établira ce que nous souhaitons accomplir au cours des années suivantes, ainsi qu'un ensemble exhaustif de mesures qui nous aideront à atteindre nos objectifs. A couple of weeks ago, an important milestone for the next policy framework was reached when federal, provincial, and territorial agricultural ministers announced the Guelph Statement, which outlined a shared vision focused on positioning Canada as a recognized world leader in sustainable agriculture. 5 priority areas were identified in the Guelph Statement. First, climate change and the environment. Second, science, research, and innovation. Third, market development and trade. Fourth, building sector capacity, growth, and competitiveness. And 5, resiliency and public trust. Science and innovation have been core components of all agricultural frameworks so far, and we recognize it as a foundational driver of progress in the other priority areas, given it enables the continued prosperity and sustainability of the agriculture sector. But we also recognize governments can do alone, and obviously not something where advancements can happen overnight. Rather, long-term, continued, and strategic investments are needed to see progress all along the innovation continuum, from foundational research and science to development, commercialization, and adoption of improved products and practices. Dans le cadre du partenariat canadien pour l'agriculture, les gouvernements fédéraux, provinciaux et territoriaux ont affecté les financements visant l'agrotechnologie, le développement et l'adoption des technologies propres, la recherche dirigée par les agriculteurs et l'industrie, le transfert de connaissances, l'agronomie et plus encore. Par exemple, dans le programme AgriScience, les scientifiques du ministère, en partenariat avec l'industrie, étudient des défis nouveaux émergents afin de maintenir l'avantage concurrentiel en agriculture. So these programs are contributing to measurable and concrete benefits for the agriculture sector. For example, under the Dairy Research Cluster of Agri-Science, a new vaccine has been developed to control the proliferation of udder infections. A license agreement has already been put in place, and the vaccine is expected to be available to dairy farms within 3 to 5 years. Under the Poultry Science Cluster of Agri-Science, a new generation spectrum LED light bulb was developed, tested, and validated, and is now already commercially available to end users, enabling increased egg production while significantly reducing energy consumption. There's also a long history in conducting research to reduce agriculture's impact on the environment, which is also a key focus of our policy frameworks. This work is carried out by world-class scientists who identify beneficial management practices that can protect soils from erosion and increase soil carbon, address risks to water quality, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and improve biodiversity on agricultural lands. It's largely been through continuous innovation that the agriculture sector has been able to effectively double productivity over recent years without significantly increasing its GHG emissions. Canada's farmers are also on the front lines of climate change, and science innovations have helped to support enhanced climate adaptation and resilience, such as by developing new varieties of crops with greater tolerance to climatic stresses and resistance to pests and disease. Transferring this knowledge so it can be leveraged and applied in the fields is also a critical part of the support provided by the Agriculture Partnership and government investments. À l'avenir, notre travail continuera d'être guidé par d'importants principes directeurs. Plus particulièrement, la collaboration étroite avec l'industrie et les provinces et territoires par l'entremise de programmes, la reconnaissance de la diversité régionale partout au pays et la nécessité que les solutions marcheront bien pour les producteurs. Nous sommes également reconnaissants que le moment est propice à l'innovation dans le secteur agroalimentaire. Des technologies de plus en plus sophistiquées naissent dans différents domaines comme ceux de l'intelligence artificielle, des capteurs, de l'informatique et de la robotique. La convergence de ces découvertes dans le secteur agricole a donné lieu à des méthodes de production et des produits nouveaux et améliorés qui peuvent être utiles pour relever de nombreux défis en matière de politique publique et atténuer de nombreux points faibles de la chaîne de la valeur. We know that we're asking our farmers to continue to feed Canadians and people across the world, and that new and evolving challenges such as climate change are creating uncertainty for the sector. However, by working closely with partners to advance the next agricultural policy framework, we do look forward to leveraging new investments in science and innovation to support a strong and sustainable agriculture and agri-food sector. So thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to the questions.
Insightful. I'm going to give now the floor to Madame Stéphanie Laure-Fontaine, qui est une administratrice de la recherche qui cumule près de 20 ans d'expérience dans les milieux académiques biopharmaceutiques et le financement de la recherche. À titre de affaires scientifiques, son mandat actuel est de diriger la stratégie d'investissement et les opérations en lien avec les différents partenariats et programmes de financement de la recherche de Génome Québec. Son équipe est responsable d'accélérer l'intégration de la génomique vers les milieux récepteurs dans divers secteurs économiques, dont la santé, l'agroalimentaire, l'environnement et la foresterie. Je donne donc la parole à Madame Stéphanie Laure-Fontaine.
Merci, Madame Marcotte, pour la belle introduction. Donc, bonjour à tous et à toutes. Je voudrais tout d'abord remercier le Fonds de recherche du Québec pour l'invitation et pour l'organisation de ce panel. Je suis très heureuse d'être avec vous ce matin pour présenter Génome Québec et le potentiel de la génomique en agriculture et agroalimentaire. Donc, first, a few words about Genome Québec. Genome Québec is a private non-profit organization established in 2000 that funds large-scale research projects and offers high-throughput genomic services to 1,000 research teams annually, with half coming from non-human health sector, and that's growing fast. Our vision is that genomic-driven innovation will improve healthcare, support agri-food, environmental and forest management practices, and also enhance public policies. So the ag sector is an important part of our current portfolio, with 18 active projects totaling $63 million in investment. The portfolio covers crops, livestock, transformation, and also fisheries and aquaculture. The proportion of funding dedicated to ag at Genome Québec significantly grew from 1% 10 years ago to about 30% now in 2021. And this is a sector where we have the most public-private partnership, speaking to the maturity of the technology and the interest also of the industry and other stakeholders to integrate genomic solutions to develop new product and services. For example, we currently co-fund projects with large international companies such as Alimel, AgroPur, Solio, Elenco, General Mills, to name a few. And so what are the main drivers of this uptake of genomic by end users? So as you probably know, genomic is a powerful tool to understand the biology of all living things, from bacteria, plants, animals, and humans. We now have the ability to read, edit, and write genomes. And a lot of resources have been developed, and to date, hundreds of species have been sequenced, and these data are available in public databases. Also of note, the cost of genomic sequencing has been steadily dropping, and at the same time, the required computing power and associated bioinformatic and statistical tools to deal with genomic data have markedly improved. So today, genomic-derived tools are currently helping breeders to rapidly evaluate and predict the genetic merit in plants and animals, informing decisions about selection and health. And new technology are coming, such as long-read sequencing and gene editing, for example, that will further advance new application in the near future. Now, I would like to highlight maybe two specific projects in our portfolio, just to give you concrete example of what genomic can do. One in crops and one in livestock. Those projects that we are currently funding in precision agriculture and the biovigilance space. So the first one is a partnership between MAPAC, our provincial ministry for agriculture, and Laval University researcher Richard Bélanger. And they are working actually on a fungi disease in soybean. And this is a very relevant crop for Quebec and for Canada, and its production has rapidly increased over the past decade. It's now the third most important crop in Canada. So this rapid expansion has come with an increase in the fungal disease affecting the crop, which causes revenue losses of over $50 million annually in Canada. And for now, the most effective control method currently available relies on the use of soybean cultivar carrying resistant genes against specific type of this fungi present in the soil, so in the fields. And a diagnostic tool of the fungi virulence profile will be developed and offered to growers, allowing them to test the soil in their field and choose the appropriate soybean line with the right resistant genes, and for breeders to deploy new soybean cultivar resistant to the disease. So with this precision agriculture tool, you can truly match the right plant to the right field. So saving costs and also having, interestingly, that could save growers over 20 million annually. And also on the environmental front, it's also expected to reduce the number of fungicide application with a potential economy of 12 million per year for growers and also, very importantly, reducing the impact, the environmental impact of putting all these fungicides in the fields. My second example I would like to highlight this morning would be in precision agriculture and livestock, with a project led by Professor Diallo at UQAM and Professor Sirard at Laval University, in partnership with Valacta, and also a company based in Quebec called MIMS. It's a company who are developing artificial intelligence tools. So they are working on dairy cows' productivity using AI tools. And as we all know, dairy is an important ag sector in Canada, generating $6 billion in net revenues each year and supporting more than 13,000 farms, mostly family-run. And innovations such as genetic selection, increased management efforts, and control over production variable have already helped maximize profitability during the past several years. So this sector is already data-driven. So projection data such as milk yield, components, animal characteristic, management condition are all available for the past 40 years, but have never been integrated with genomic data. So that's what they will be doing with this project. So they are developing the tools that will perform this integration of genomic data with the other available data sets. So their AI-based toolkit will deliver predictive models of dairy production that will then influence management practices and optimize dairy farm profitability. So the project takes advantage of the advances in genomic that allow a detailed profile to be established for each cow at low cost, optimizing decision about feeding, reproduction, therapeutic treatments, and caregiving. And it will also be a stepping stone into include new selection traits and breeding program, such as housing condition, eye for growth, and adaptation to robotized milking system. So with these two projects, I think to conclude, genomic is a very innovative technology to accelerate precision agriculture. And that was really clearly illustrated by the two examples that I picked today, and we have several others. And we really feel that it will help drive the development of crops and livestock with combination of genes that lead to the best performance in specific environments. Thank you.
Je passe maintenant la parole à M. Bernard Verret, qui occupe le poste de sous-ministre adjoint à la transformation et aux politiques bioalimentaires au ministère de l'Agriculture, des Pêcheries et de l'Alimentation du Québec. Titulaire d'un baccalauréat en agronomie de l'Université Laval, M. Bernard Verret, agronome, possède une longue expérience dans le secteur agricole, notamment en matière de stratégie d'affaires, et ce, tant sur la scène québécoise qu'internationale. Il a été directeur de la production porcine chez Breton Agri-Management, directeur régional de Pig Improvement Company et directeur général de la Fédération des producteurs de porc du Québec. Monsieur Verret, je vous donne la parole.
Oui, bonjour. Merci, Madame Marcotte. Bonjour à tous. Welcome everybody. It will be my just few words in English. Je vais rester maintenant en français. Tout le monde voit bien la présentation. Je vais vous parler en français et les diapositives seront en anglais. Je me présente, Bernard Verret, je suis agronome. J'ai fait une carrière de 25 ans dans le secteur privé, spécialement dans l'application de la technologie à l'amélioration génétique animale. Ici au Canada et à l'étranger, 12 ans au Canada et 13 ans au Royaume-Uni. Et puis, depuis maintenant 10 ans, je suis responsable des politiques agricoles du Québec, dont une que j'aimerais vous parler particulièrement, c'est que je vous la montre ici, c'est la politique bioalimentaire du Québec. Et je changerai de diapositive, s'il vous plaît. Ici, la politique bioalimentaire du Québec a fait une grande place à l'innovation. On a une section au complet qui s'intitule « Investir dans l'innovation et renforcer les synergies ». En fait, le rôle au MAPAC pour la science, on veut une science vraiment appliquée, une science qui peut se traduire en des changements à des changements visibles au niveau agricole dans un avenir court, de 0 à 2 à 4 ans. Donc, on reste vraiment dans l'application. Et puis, dans un survol de qu'est-ce que dit la politique bioalimentaire en innovation, c'est augmenter les efforts de recherche et d'innovation avec un effet levier des partenaires. On voit les partenaires des autres gouvernements ou principalement les entreprises privées. Améliorer les infrastructures de recherche, dont une nouvelle pour le porc, une autre pour l'horticulture et une à venir pour la production de lait. Renforcer les approches concertées au niveau de la recherche et l'innovation, travailler avec, entre autres, le scientifique en chef, favoriser la culture d'innovation forte en soutien à la recherche et développement et au transfert des connaissances, et encadrer la recherche dans le bioalimentaire par une conduite responsable afin que la recherche demeure crédible, objective, fiable et renforce la confiance du public envers les travaux. On change de diapositive. Dans les faits, la politique se traduit dans le support de 17 centres de recherche. Si on voit le premier bloc bleu en haut, uniquement pour l'année 2021, les gouvernements, c'est-à-dire ici, je ne sais pas si vous voyez le symbole du partenariat canadien pour l'agriculture, le Canada et le Québec ont investi 30,9 millions en 2021 dans les 17 centres de recherche et on est allé chercher des investissements totaux de 73 millions pour la recherche dans les centres d'expertise, soit des centres de recherche ou des centres de transfert de technologie. Soit dans tous les domaines. On passe de l'ovin aux céréales, au lait, dans 17 centres de recherche. En plus de ces 30 millions-là, dans l'année 2021, on a aussi mis encore, en partenariat avec le gouvernement canadien, 16 millions dans des programmes de soutien à la recherche et à l'innovation. Et on est allé chercher pour un total d'investissement avec les partenaires de 22,5 millions. Ça, c'est encore seulement une année. Finalement, on a annoncé tout récemment une entente de 30 millions de 5 ans avec le Fonds de recherche du Québec, avec le Nature et Technologie, FRQNT, et entre autres avec le scientifique en chef, pour le développement des connaissances en agriculture durable. Je changerai de diapositive. Ici, je vais vous guider dans cette diapositive-là de quelle façon, au MAPAC, on utilise le leadership scientifique. Je vais vous guider dans la boîte bleu foncé à gauche en bas, qui est nommée le leadership scientifique. On a créé un poste au MAPAC pour assurer le leadership scientifique. Et pour ne pas l'appeler le scientifique en chef, pour ne pas froisser personne, on l'a appelé coordonnateur scientifique. Et le coordonnateur scientifique, lui, coordonne toutes les activités de recherche avec nos différents scientifiques qu'on a au MAPAC. Si on regarde la boîte bleu pâle juste en haut, au MAPAC, on a des experts scientifiques. Si on pense, entre autres, on a un vétérinaire en chef, on a plusieurs vétérinaires experts en bien-être des animaux ou différentes maladies. On a des scientifiques pour la santé des sols, on a des scientifiques pour les mauvaises herbes. Et puis, on a besoin d'une certaine coordination parce que tous ces secteurs-là, ils ont des effets qui peuvent se combiner. Et aussi, le rôle du coordonnateur scientifique, c'est d'organiser le réseautage à travers les différents scientifiques, comme entre autres les scientifiques qui sont dans les universités, à Agriculture Canada, dans les différents centres de recherche, les centres collégiaux de transfert de technologie. Donc, le poste de leadership est vraiment central pour vraiment bien coordonner la recherche. Et puis également, cette personne-là est en lien avec le bureau du scientifique en chef qu'on voit, qui est illustré dans la boîte bleue tout au haut. Finalement, le rôle de cette personne-là, c'est d'organiser le conseil scientifique, de travailler sur des données probantes et pour mettre dans nos politiques des orientations plus scientifiques. Et ensuite de ça, ça nous permet aussi de d'organiser des thèmes prioritaires de recherche pour nos politiques bioalimentaires. Je vais vous donner un exemple. La prochaine diapositive, c'est un exemple. La prochaine diapositive ici, c'est récemment, avec l'aide du bureau du scientifique en chef, notre coordonnatrice de la recherche a mis en place une politique pour la conduite responsable de la recherche. C'est s'assurer que les travaux que nos chercheurs font soient reconnus et puis soient publiés de la bonne façon et que les travaux soient reconnus internationalement. Et qu'il n'y a pas non plus d'influence de certains groupes de lobby vers ces chercheurs-là. On a fait une publication d'un cadre de gestion. Par la suite, on a formulé des attentes vis-à-vis chacun des centres de recherche pour s'assurer que chaque centre de recherche applique une conduite responsable en recherche et on fait vivre notre politique là, de conduite responsable de recherche avec des réunions et de la formation de façon annuelle. Grosso modo, ici, en quelques diapositives, je voulais vous démontrer c'était quoi le rôle du MAPAC là, avec l'innovation. Et puis, je vous remercie, Mme Marcotte, de m'avoir invité. Et puis, je suis disponible maintenant pour répondre à vos questions.
Merci, M. Verret. Nous devions procéder avec la présentation de M. Mossel, mais je ne sais pas s'il est là. Est-ce que vous êtes là, M. Mossel, de l'Institut canadien de politique agroalimentaire? OK. Alors, nous allons maintenant procéder à la deuxième partie de notre panel de dégustation, c'est-à-dire les questions qui vous seront posées. Malheureusement, M. Al Mossel ne peut pas se joindre au panel de dégustation, au panel de discussion. Il a des problèmes techniques. Donc, nous allons procéder immédiatement aux questions. Merci beaucoup pour vos interventions. Et ma première question est: par quel biais intégrez-vous de manière durable la recherche dans l'établissement des politiques publiques en agriculture? Quel est le meilleur modèle d'infrastructure pour ce faire? Quelles sont les meilleures pratiques pour entretenir un réflexe scientifique au sein des administrations? Alors, je commencerai à donner la parole à M. Verret, ensuite Mme Kim, et puis Mme Fontaine.
Assez complexe. Le meilleur modèle, je ne pense pas qu'il va être facile à définir. Mais premièrement, j'aimerais mieux parler de la réflexion scientifique. La réflexion scientifique, je crois qu'il faut qu'elle soit faite, il faut que ça soit transmis là, dans les valeurs du ministère. Et ici, c'est pour ça qu'on a créé le poste de coordonnateur scientifique. Et puis aussi, c'était pour bien coordonner la recherche. Parce que on parle toujours de prendre des décisions avec des données scientifiques, mais il y a plusieurs sciences qui ne sont pas toujours en accord. Et puis la science, des fois, vous venez de l'Agence canadienne d'inspection des aliments, vous savez bien, pour protéger la santé des humains, protéger le bien-être des animaux, protéger l'économie, protéger différents aspects, mais il y a des lieux de confrontation. Et c'est pour ça que c'est bien d'avoir une place où les scientifiques peuvent se parler entre eux et essayer trouver des consensus. De l'autre côté, le modèle que Mme Kim a introduit tout à l'heure du partenariat canadien sur l'agriculture ou le prochain cadre stratégique canadien, c'est un bel exemple de collaboration. J'ai essayé aussi d'en parler un peu ce matin. On voit là, que les orientations des grandes politiques canadiennes et québécoises peuvent trouver des points communs. Et puis, avec la flexibilité qui nous est permise, on peut travailler sur des objectifs communs ensemble. Et puis, on le voit. Il y a une démonstration qu'on a fait tout à l'heure. L'autre difficulté, c'est puis les difficultés qu'on entrevoit et qu'on a besoin du monde scientifique, c'est qu'on est à l'aube de changements importants quand on parle au changement climatique. Et puis, on travaille sur les changements climatiques depuis plusieurs années. Ici au Québec, vous devez connaître le groupe Ouranos qui travaille là, sur des projections de changement climatique. De quelle façon s'adapter au changement climatique? C'est bien, mais de quelle façon on peut mesurer le progrès dans les objectifs qu'on se donne, un progrès permanent? Parce que qu'est-ce qu'on veut, c'est un progrès permanent, c'est pas une amélioration temporaire. Fait que on a besoin beaucoup du monde scientifique pour accompagner là, les changements qui s'en viennent. Et puis, le meilleur modèle, c'est celui qui permet une discussion et qui permet une discussion et un échange entre les chercheurs et les décideurs. Il faut vraiment permettre ces tribunes d'échange parce que personne ne détient la vérité. Là. Il faut vraiment avoir des tribunes d'échange. Excusez-moi là, de vous avoir passé du coq à l'âne un peu et puis de laisser la chance aux autres de commenter.
Merci, M. Verrette. Madame Kim?
This is a great question, and I think Bernard's really covered a lot of it. Maybe I'll just add, from an AASC perspective, research and science is obviously a pretty significant component of our work. In addition to our headquarters, we do have 20 research and development centers across the country, which play a pretty critical role in addressing our science priorities. In general, I have to say that since joining AASC, I've certainly seen the broad influence that science has on our public policy making. Whether it's for things like the policy framework, our approach to international trade in agriculture products, or in ensuring programs for producers are well tailored and beneficial. Is it always perfect? Probably not. So when I think of the question about best practices for maintaining a science reflex within administrations, I think would go back to what I mentioned in my remarks with collaboration being a really important principle for our work, because whether we're talking to provinces, territories, industry, academia, or other stakeholders, we have some kind of collaboration with everyone on this panel. The importance of science for the prosperity and continued sustainability of the sector is something we definitely hear at every turn. So that's certainly a way to help ingrain that reflex for us. I might just add an example. So we do have our Living Laboratories initiative at the federal level for us, which this is just a great example of a collaborative approach to science and innovation development. It's where we bring together farmers, scientists, and others through a nationwide network of living labs. So they develop and test solutions to environmental issues related to agriculture, such as climate change, soil health, water quality, and biodiversity, while making sure that those solutions can actually work in the fields for Canadian farmers. The other example I might just add is making sure, as I talked about, that we're supporting the whole innovation continuum. So in Budget 2017, the government announced $70 million to support agriculture discovery science, really going to that beginning of the continuum and making sure that there's support to have that foundational approach to the science that we do. But really good question, and I think I'll leave it there.
Merci, Madame Kim. Madame Fontaine, est-ce que vous avez des choses à rajouter?
I come from a research funder perspective, so I might just add that one of our key success factors is really ensuring that the research projects are multidisciplinary, as was mentioned by the other panelists. And we also involve social scientists that works on ethical, environmental, economic, legal, and social impact of genomics, and not just like the the pure basic scientists. And in that sense, they can tackle the question related to the barriers and challenges for implementation of the technology while working with the genomic scientists. So I think this aspect of genomics in society is really a facilitator of research impact. So that's a key point for us. And also together with Genome Canada and the other provincial center, we are transitioning next year to a new mission-based model. And to implement that, the key is collaboration. So we will be engaging with many stakeholders and end users from different perspectives, government, academic, and industry. And we really envision mission to be focused on impact and goal-driven, with those multi-stakeholder effort to deliver genomic solution for global challenges such as sustainable food system. One last thing, from time to time, Genome Quebec works with experts to produce policy briefs. They are available on our website. We have recently published 2 briefs in the ag sector, genomic tools for a better use of pesticide, and the traceability challenges in agriculture and agri-food. And we are about to release another one on antimicrobial resistance. So that would be my research funder perspective on this question.
Thank you very much. I see that perhaps is Mr. Muscle available here? Okay, so I think we can go with the final panelist explaining a little bit the report, and then we will continue with the next three questions. Mr. Muscle, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Michelle. I have a short slide deck that I would like to bring up here. Trying to figure out how to share my screen. No, I don't. Oh, yes, I do. Okay, sorry, just bear with me. Yeah, it's a set of PowerPoint slides. Do you see it now? Okay, is this working now? Okay, very good. Yeah, my apologies for the technical difficulties, and I'll go quickly here, Michelle. Sorry. So Al Muscle from the Canadian Agri-Food Policy Institute. Just a quick little piece on us. Our work as an institute and a think tank is to aspire to develop new ideas on agri-food policy and how we can work together. And there's a range of elements of our portfolio that I'm not going to go into in detail here in terms of our work to try and inspire new ideas with respect to agri-food policy, how we work together, and research, of course, is a core element of this. And a lot of our work, of course, is public research, and that's an aspect of policy. And it's fashionable to say that agriculture is different from other sectors of the economy, and actually, with respect to public policy, that's accurate. It is, and the reason for that is that agriculture, along with immigration, is unique as a portfolio of joint responsibility between the federal government and provinces. What that means is that federal and provincial territorial governments must work together on agriculture, but it's a complex file, in my understanding of it. First, we have an imbalance in fiscal capacity favoring the federal government. Essentially, the federal government has the budget through taxation, much more so than provinces do. At the same time, the interface with stakeholders is much more oriented towards provinces and territories. Then finally, we have a great diversity of issues across provinces and territories that must be engaged by policy. So it's a complex file, and governments fundamentally must work together on this. Moreover, our framework for how the federal government and provinces engage this was not presented to us. It had to be built. Because it had to be built, it's tenuous. There was always the threat that the funding for ag income stabilization programming, which presents about 60 or 70% thereabouts of the overall budget, would just simply consume all focus of discussions of various parameters of policy, including research and innovation. And there's always the threat that that form of engagement could break down into provincial rivalries. Now, this problem was recognized, and over the course of about 20 years or thereabouts, we evolved, starting in 2003 with the Agricultural Policy Framework, to a framework that would engage these issues. And I think there were some capstone issues that allowed this to go forward. First of all, there was a more liberal and rules-based international trade environment that came out of the agreements that led to the World Trade Organization and the Agreement on Agriculture, that defined market access, that allowed Canada, which is inherently has agricultural productivity that exceeds domestic demands, to ramp up and focus on exports in most segments, and also disciplines on domestic agricultural support. And I'll come back to that in a few moments. It also allowed for an engagement of the issue of equity of access to federal funding, so that farmers, commodities, and provinces all have, in essence, equity of access to federal programming funds. Also agreed upon programming cost shares between the federal and provincial territorial governments. And finally, demand-driven stabilization programming was quite fundamental. And what that really means is that in order for farmers to access ag stabilization funding, there needs to be a loss. In other words, our programs, at least in a dominant manner, are not entitlement type programs. Now, in order to have evidence-based policy, we need research. Federal and provincial territorial governments fund research, both independently and in the context of Fed-Prov territorial agreements. The 5-year funding window, beginning with the Agricultural Policy Framework in 2003, has vastly opened and improved the dialogue on funding for research and innovation. And I think it's very important to recognize that. It is also a complicated matter. Increasingly, what we define as basic research and agricultural research is getting more complicated all the time. And just as by way of example, we have, when you get into genomics, for example, we have the same researchers, same technologies, same techniques used to, for example, map the genome of a crop, as we would the human genome or bacteria or cancer. And it's more and more difficult to define what exactly is agricultural research, as distinct from other forms of research. Increasingly, our research in agriculture and more generally requires broader coordination. That challenges us as researchers who are, by nature specialists to work together in multidisciplinary teams, and that's ongoing, and that's very much positive. We struggle to get to the long-term strategic issues under the envelope of FPT funding, as opposed to the tactical matters that deal with the difficulties or hazards or pests, etc., that happen in the recent past, and just sort of putting fires out versus the long-term strategic issues. That's a challenge, and it's an FPT challenge because some provinces really have little resources to put into this independently, and that's a difficulty for us. Over the last number of years, whereas in the past, industry through provincial governments up to the FPT table motivated research. Now we have other players in research. In other words, ag and food research that's done under the auspices of other departments. So, for example, we have Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada that funds clusters, more or less fragmented on a farm product basis, but we also now have these super clusters, and two that come to mind: the protein super cluster and also advanced manufacturing, that overlap heavily into agriculture. So we have to be able to navigate that. I guess the final point that I would make on this is that our FPT agreements have been largely about programming budgets and less about an open strategic policy that will ask, what sort of research at a very high level should we be doing if indeed we can't do everything. And on that point, it's simply a fact that Canada cannot generate all the research that is needed in ag and food to prosper. We need to find a way to have partnerships internationally, and we do have some of these partnerships. But as I'm going to come back to in a few moments, I think these are challenged. And also, it's not just science. Science is obviously critical, but it's also the social science aspect, how we identify objectives, and at a fundamental level, how we work together effectively to get these things done, implement, etc. Looking from today, it appears as though we're in a much more volatile situation. The rules-based international trade paradigm that's existed in ag and food has eroded just in the course of the last 5 or 6 years. As a result of that, we have a much more volatile farm price and market access income situation. The geopolitical situation in a short period of time has evolved in which we now, I think, have a less favorable environment for international research partnerships. Perhaps the best example of this, just last week, we had the meeting of the three amigos, Mexico, US, and Canada, and the US announced a subsidy program, very powerful subsidy program for electric vehicles. Canada's not part of that, so you have to worry that the development and research innovation associated with electrification will just be sucked into the US. As far as I know, we're not planning to match that, so we're at that risk. All of these things impart on agriculture and food as well. We have east-west tensions in Canada having to do with economic development that have almost not been experienced in a generation. And because agriculture and food is different in terms of how the federal government and provinces work together, we have this imminent threat of provincial rivalry, which is, as far as I'm concerned, destructive for everyone. We also need to be able to maintain and indeed grow our capacity in exports to feed a hungry world, and that's going to be part of Canada's foreign policy going forward. I'm of two minds here. Just sort of to conclude, these are critical problems. that research and innovation in agriculture and food needs to be able to address. These problems could vault our research agenda to the forefront, and it could further transform our FPT process to be more than just a budget type process and be more strategic and lead to deeper, better ag and food research and innovation. The other possibility, unfortunately, is that in the face of adversity, the existing policy framework could become increasingly difficult, fragmented across provinces, and perhaps fraught. And I really hope that doesn't happen. Anyway, I'm gonna conclude there. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Mussel. I'm going to go right away to the third question, skip the second one, which I think was answered by most of the panelists. So what I'm going to ask you is how to position the science to stay ahead, to be more competitive internationally in agriculture. What is the innovative science that needs to be undertaken? I think we got some elements of a problem, but I think I'm going to give the floor to Madame Kim, then Monsieur Verret, then Madame Laure, and perhaps Mr. Mussel at the end.
Merci, Madame Marcotte. Maybe I'll pick up on something that Maud Fontaine had started speaking about, which is precision agriculture is just one example of being strategically positioned to be ahead of the game. So for those of you who aren't familiar, precision agriculture aims to improve the sustainability, efficiency, and productivity of agriculture operations. And it enables things like lower input costs, increased yields, and enhanced environmental sustainability by enabling more precise management decisions on farm. So already AST data shows that 40% of farms above 500 acres are adopting some level of precision agriculture technologies, things like guidance systems and observational mapping. And this is an area where we think that there's real opportunity to support the sector in leveraging this tool to be more competitive for the future. Really, there's so many benefits like enhanced management of regional weather, pest and disease forecasting, as well as being able to incent a broader ecosystem to accelerate the commercialization and adoption of precision agriculture technologies. So just one example of how we support this is the Agriculture Clean Technology Program, where we can invest in the adoption of precision agriculture so that farmers can gather and process data for the purpose of guiding actions on farm. Maybe just to note, it's really important how this is one element of how the landscape is transforming in terms of tools that are available, the amount of data that's needed, but also some of the barriers and accessibility that we need to be mindful of on the ground. So really, when we think about the importance of rural broadband, this is certainly a priority for the government to expand access to that so that our rural communities, including agriculture lands, can take advantage of some of these innovative technologies and be able to have that foundation to work from. So that's one example. I thought that might be useful to provide you.
Merci, Madame Kim. Monsieur Verret?
Oui, merci. Je vais vous répondre un petit peu de façon avec mon passé puis ma formation, de quelle façon avec les expériences que j'ai vécues au cours des 35 dernières années. Selon moi, ça prend un degré d'opportunisme pour comment positionner la science pour compétitionner de façon internationale. Ça prend un peu d'opportunisme. Il faut reconnaître nos forces et nos faiblesses. Et puis, il faut travailler sur nos forces. Il faut identifier nos bons chercheurs. Il faut savoir dans quel secteur on peut faire. On ne peut pas tout faire. Si on a des spécialités en génomique, on travaille en génomique, puis il faut encourager les bonnes collaborations entre les bons chercheurs et les bonnes personnes en affaires. C'est extrêmement important là, de reconnaître où sont les bonnes personnes en affaires pour être capable de faire les bons liens Fait que c'est mon passé d'homme d'affaires qui me revient, là. Et puis ici, c'est pas vraiment appliqué à l'agriculture, ça s'applique à tous les domaines de la science. Concernant l'agriculture, parce que c'est un domaine un peu spécial, l'agriculture et l'alimentation, c'est quand même toujours spécial, comme M. Mossol le soulignait. Mais c'est vrai que la volatilité est en augmentation due au changement géopolitique. On l'a vu dans les 5 dernières années avec les élections aux États-Unis, et puis de quelle façon que ça se développe avec la Chine, qui est un des grands importateurs d'aliments qui a des comportements très erratiques. Et puis avant la Chine, ça a été la Russie qui avait quand même des comportements un peu difficiles. Fait que le géopolitique est beaucoup plus volatile. En plus des changements climatiques qui sont de plus en plus, qu'il faut considérer de plus en plus. Et puis, ici, il faut faire réfléchir autrement comment appliquer la science pour un développement durable de l'agriculture. Et puis, de quelle façon qu'on implique le développement de l'agriculture dans le monde moderne des changements climatiques. Et puis, ça, c'est le travail à faire dans les prochaines années, assez rapidement. Comment comprendre notre agriculture dans les changements climatiques, et puis de quelle façon que le Canada doit réagir aux changements géopolitiques. Et puis, parce que c'est bien de nourrir le monde, mais est-ce que c'est au détriment du long terme des Canadiens? Il faut y réfléchir tout le temps. Fait que c'est mes réflexions sur la question.
Merci. Madame Fontaine?
Yes, so that's my favorite question. I would like to echo Madame Kim's comments. So we are really entering the era of big data, and biology is now digital thanks to genomics. So my answer would be combining omic biological data from crops, animals, soil microbiome, pathogen and pest with diverse other data sources such as sensors, drones, robots, Internet of Things, climate data, etc., and use advanced data analytics such as AI to bring informed decision-making at a new level for producers and farmers. So I think that would be the competitive edge that we could go forward with. And this will eventually boost yield and quality while increasing sustainability for agriculture and agri-food. One potential avenue that we are currently exploring at Genome Quebec in that space is the creation of a genomic data center, combining all those data sets and making sure we have the appropriate infrastructure in place to drive this precision agriculture revolution. Also of note, I would like to say that on the biovigilance front, we could also envision global genomic-enabled surveillance system to predict and track diseases and pests in this changing climate environment. So those technology already exist, and we have strong research capacity and available infrastructure. So I think that with strategic investment, Canada could be very well positioned in that space to be a leader worldwide. So that would be my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Mossel, couple of minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I think the other speakers have done a good job of talking about the focus detail areas of research and innovation. I'm going to respond in this way. Several years ago, the OECD in a presentation to the World Trade Organization outlined the extent to which the Americas are surplus ag and food products, and most of the rest of the world, notably Asia, as well as Europe, really all the rest of the world, Africa, etc., are deficit. So really, I think the detail around what research and innovation we pursue needs to engage that reality. Essentially, North and South America are going to be charged going forward with feeding the rest of the world, and that's our opportunity, our challenge. It's a risky environment to operate in, and of course we've experienced some of those risks, but also phenomenal opportunity. So our research and innovation needs to be engaged in that strategy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mussel. Now I'm going to the last question, and then after that we'll give the floor to the audience. What are the five main environmental challenges that the agriculture and agri-food sector is facing and will have to face? And what are the emerging scientific solutions and the research to be undertaken to ensure the sustainable development of this sector? I'm going to give the floor to perhaps Mr. Mussel first, and then after that, we're going to go a little bit reverse. Madame Fontaine, Monsieur Verret, and Madame Kim.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm going to maybe respond at a high level. There's many environmental challenges, but of course, agriculture is uniquely positioned as a solutions provider. On the climate change file, obviously, ag and food account for a significant proportion of the emissions, but agriculture and along with forestry and perhaps a handful of other industries are also in a position to be a solutions provider. And I think there's already fulsome work going on in that area to explore how we better engage agronomic practices, invest in equipment technologies, etc., to facilitate mitigation and sequestration of greenhouse gases. I guess the other one that comes immediately to mind is eutrophication, accelerated eutrophication and phosphorus. And there again, I think we're already down this road somewhat. However, there's much more that agriculture can contribute in terms of phosphorus retention and mitigation technologies that engage that problem.
Thank you very much. Madame Fontaine?
Yes, there are actually many environmental challenges, but first I would say ensuring we can adapt to the new realities of climate change. Of course, this will mean different things across Canada. So one area where we think that genomic can have a role is in developing new plant cultivars better adapted to local conditions. So basically in terms of drought, flood, pests, and diseases. Another important aspect, as was mentioned previously by other panelists, is increasing agriculture sustainability. So under that umbrella, we can think of soil health and increasing its capacities to sequester carbon and improving energy efficiency by reducing fossil fuel-derived pesticide and synthetic fertilizer. This could have direct impact on reducing emission of greenhouse gases, particularly nitrous oxide and methane. And this is also relevant for water stewardship, I would think. So genomic can help develop new bio-based alternative solution to pesticide and fertilizer and can be used to monitor soil health by using microbiome indicators. And also, as I was previously mentioning, with the combination of genomic data and AI, we will be able to be very precise and select where and when pesticide and fertilizer would need to be applied. And lastly, another new trend that is emerging is I would think, the consumer demand for alternative protein sources. I think that could be a driver of new opportunity for the sector. And given this changing environment and expanding population, increasing demands for nutrition, I think the need to optimize agriculture is now very timely, and that harnessing genomic innovation in agriculture will enable more productive and basically sustainable practices to address those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Monsieur Verret?
Oui, bonjour. Bonjour. Oui, je crois qu'il va y avoir beaucoup de défis environnementaux à voir dans les prochaines années. Puis, l'agriculture peut être une partie de la solution, mais vous pouvez être une partie du problème aussi. Et puis, l'agriculture, c'est un rôle important à jouer. Et puis ici, le défi de l'agriculture, c'est le défi du temps. C'est les objectifs à court terme et la compétitivité à court terme, et puis la compétitivité et la durabilité à long terme. Et puis, c'est ça, ça va être la difficulté, c'est le défi. C'est comment protéger l'eau par rapport à la qualité de l'eau, par rapport aux citoyens des villes, par rapport à l'utilisation des pesticides, par rapport à l'utilisation des fertilisants, versus la rentabilité, versus nourrir le monde. Il faut vraiment tout bien balancer ces défis-là. Et puis, c'est le défi qu'on a à balancer là, dans les prochaines années.
Merci beaucoup, M. Verret. Madame Kim?
Thank you. I think the other panelists have covered it, and I had touched on this in my remarks a bit. Maybe just in terms of this question, I'll also link it to the last question around strategically positioning the sector to be ahead of the game. I mean, I think this is really one of the emphases that were clear in the Guelph statement that the FPC had signed a couple of weeks ago, the next policy framework. You'll have seen there sustainable agriculture being a strong emphasis, but not just in one dimension, really the three dimensions of sustainable development. So how the economic, the environment, and the social really interconnect in this concept. Because, you know, when we think about the future and what can be done to capture new markets, to meet changing consumer expectations and public expectations, to have that continued growth and prosperity in the sector, but also, you know, viability in the face of more frequent and more severe extreme weather events. Having this approach is really kind of critical to ensuring the ongoing prosperity and sustainability of the sector in our view. So really where the public policy and the science and innovation do need to connect and work together.
Thank you very much. It's now time to give the floor to the audience. If you have a questions, let me see now if there are some questions here. Is there? I don't. Okay. I'm not sure I have access to the question.
Madame Marcotte, c'est Bernard Verret. Si vous me permettez de rajouter un commentaire.
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Mais il y a aussi le défi, là, on a parlé de l'agriculture en ayant en tête beaucoup les sols et la production des végétaux. Mais un des défis aussi qu'on va réfléchir, c'est les protéines animales. Et puis, de quelle façon qu'on travaille les protéines animales, de quelle façon on a beaucoup de bœuf au Canada, on a beaucoup de porc au Canada. Est-ce que c'est quel sera le futur de ces productions-là? Pas à court terme, mais si on se projette dans le futur, il faut y réfléchir comme il faut. Et puis, on a des défis à l'horizon. Pour ceux qui connaissent mieux le secteur du porc, il y a le défi très important des menaces, là, des maladies comme la peste porcine africaine, qui font vraiment réfléchir à comment nourrir le monde. Et puis, on a plusieurs kilos ou dollars d'exportation qui sont vraiment menacés par des maladies. Et puis, c'est les citoyens canadiens qui ont à supporter ça. Il faut vraiment y réfléchir.
Merci, M. Verret. C'était vraiment un excellent commentaire. Je viens de voir une question de la part des participants. What was the percent of farms adopting some form of technology? Je ne sais pas si Mme Kim ou peut-être d'autres peuvent répondre à cette question-là.
I think just reading the question, I think it may have been just to get a clarification on something I'd said.
Yes.
Precision agriculture technologies in particular. So the figure that I'd mentioned was 40% of farms above 500 acres were adopting some level of precision agriculture technologies, such as guided systems and observational mapping. Just to say, I mean, when we talk about technology writ large, obviously it depends on how we define that. But, you know, Canadian farms are certainly adopting different types of technologies and to a great degree, and, you know, using and leveraging those to enhance productivity and sustainability on farm. But that figure was just in relation to agriculture.
Excellent.
Michelle, could I build on that, on Natasha's
Yes.
comments there?
Yes.
You know, I
Yes,
think there's a real
absolutely.
opportunity for us. You know, look, provincial and federal governments don't have all the resources that they need to be able to collect information on this, and I think that's really quite important. You know, the uptake of beneficial management practices, periodically we survey this on an ad hoc basis. I think provinces are in different places on this one. I suspect that Quebec probably is the leader in terms of not only the uptake of BMPs, but also the survey and that rate of uptake. Ontario and Alberta also, but other in some cases other provinces, in terms of how environmental BMPs in particular are being taken up, probably lag. But more fundamentally, we don't really know, because we don't have the resources out there to survey and collect that data set. Now we do have something that comes through the Census of Agriculture, through the Farm Environmental Management Survey, but the lags on that are very significant. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, we don't have yet the information from the 2016 Census of Agriculture. And as far as I know, that's a resource issue. So we need to pay better attention, I think, to how this information is collected and tabulated and then published.
Merci. Okay, I'm not sure I see other questions. I will look at the discussion. We invite to use the live. Okay, I'd like to invite the participant to use the live Q&As in order to ask the questions. So I'm going to be waiting a couple of minutes. And then maybe if the audience has questions, we can answer them. We can ask the panelists to answer them. But in the meantime, I guess what I would like to do is to ask the third question, because we still have 11 minutes. So the third question was, because it was partially answered, I would say. So the third question is how to position the science strategically. No, how did you, well, I think that's the one that we haven't answered, the second question, I guess. How did you address the challenge of cross-jurisdictional collaboration between the province and federal government? I think I would like to ask this question now. Madame Laure Fontaine?
Sure. Merci, Michelle. So this is quite straightforward for Genome Quebec, and we do have a strong culture of collaboration. It's already part of our business model, where we closely work with Genome Canada at the federal level, and we do have regular calls, so several times per month. And while also collaborating with the other 6 provincial genome centers by co-funding projects together and developing joint initiatives. On the provincial front, I would say that over the years, we have developed a very productive relationship with MAPAC. They are acting as an user on research projects and work closely with the academic community. And we also make sure to keep them in the loop on the different priorities and strategic initiatives that we are developing. So that's also a strong point. At the federal level, Genome Quebec signed a partnership with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada 2 years ago to co-invest $4 million in 3 projects, basically focusing on genomic-driven biovigilance and diagnostic tools for crop fungi. and developing genomic selection program for oat, barley, and potatoes. And we also co-fund a few projects with CFI in food salubrity and also in biovigilance. So the diagnostic tools will be used for tracking diseases and pests that could have important economic impact for producer and, of course, negative outcome for public health. The tools can also be used for certification purposes to select a plant, a pathogen-free plant, for example, for trade purposes. So that would be my key points there.
Thank you very much, Madame Fontaine. Madame Kim?
Great, thank you for the question. I mean, this goes to a lot of my remarks regarding the next policy framework for agriculture, and really how important these policy frameworks are to allow federal, provincial, and territorial governments to really do more and better, because we're working together when we develop these approaches and policies to assist the sector. And as noted, having that uniting vision and those common outcomes and priorities at a pan-Canadian level is incredibly important for those policy frameworks, and to unite us in a bit of an end goal and vision for the sector. While at the same time, obviously recognizing that there are significant regional differences that require different approaches across the country. When you look across the country, there's different characteristics for the sector, agriculture and agri-food. There are also different environmental challenges or different complexions to those challenges. There's different commodities that are of more focus in one area of the country than others. So it's really not always a one-size-fits-all, and so different solutions and even research priorities are often required. So that's why, for these agriculture policy frameworks, it's really important for us to continually evolve along with the evolving landscape that Al Mussel had mentioned. Certainly the importance and incredible challenge and for us to rise to that challenge of climate change, but also an evolving geopolitical landscape as well. So this becomes part of our regular conversations at the FBT table, but also as we collaborate with industry and others. So an absolute pillar of the work we do is that cross-jurisdictional collaboration.
Thank you, Madame Kim. Monsieur Mussel?
Yeah, thanks. And I'd like to kind of build off of what Natasha was just saying, around having an end goal and vision and embracing the diversity that we have in Canada across regions and commodities and so on. I guess in the work that I do, I struggle to fully understand the context that we're operating in here. We're well outside of the context of marginal changes year over year across different kinds of food products, food security, et cetera. We're well into a very different environment, and I guess maybe the best example that I could draw on that, on the sidelines of the COP26 meeting recently, I saw an interview published with the CEO of Yara, which is one of the large fertilizer manufacturers out of Norway. And what she was saying was, she was quoted as saying, "Are we in a food crisis? You better believe we're in a food crisis." She said that her company's costs a year ago of manufacturing ammonia was $100 a ton. She said that today it's $1,200 a ton, and that fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer, if it's available globally, is going to be exceptionally expensive. Well, gosh, that's not a marginal change. That's a kind of a whack upside the head. And how do we understand that in terms of how we plan research, innovation, and how do we as Canadians and Canadian industry step up to the plate in that environment? And I find it difficult to sort of work through the full range of adjustments and what the implications of that are. And maybe it's only short term. I hope it's only short term. But this is the reality that we're living in, and how do we adjust appropriately?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mussel. Monsieur Verret? êtes sur muet. Je ne vous entends pas.
Pardon, est-ce que vous m'entendez bien maintenant?
Oui, maintenant, oui.
Excusez-moi. Je vais vous répondre en deux temps. En premier temps, de quelle façon qu'on établit une vision? On établit une vision ici, comme M. Mossol l'a bien expliqué plus tôt, les provinces sont assez près des producteurs et des transformateurs. Et puis nous, on les rencontre régulièrement et annuellement pour construire ensemble une vision. Et puis, je vous ai parlé au début de la politique bioalimentaire, mais elle est mise à jour continuellement. Et puis, qu'est-ce qu'on entend beaucoup présentement de nos grands agriculteurs, de nos grands transformateurs? C'est que les commandes viennent de grandes multinationales, comme Nestlé, comme General Mills, qui ont des demandes particulières par rapport au changement climatique. Et puis, ils ont des visions. Donc, il faut ajuster nos politiques par rapport aux grands mouvements internationaux. Et puis, il y a beaucoup de commandes qui viennent des grands acheteurs, des grands donneurs d'ordre, qu'on appelle les grands donneurs d'ordre, c'est des grandes multinationales. Et puis, donc, on en a des Canadiennes aussi, les Loblaws de ce monde. Et puis, de quelle façon qu'on encourage la collaboration? Ici, c'est à différents niveaux. Comme je vous ai dit, on avait 17 centres de recherche et plusieurs universités qui travaillent en agriculture, et des groupes aussi comme Ouranos ou des groupes comme Génome Québec. Mais on encourage à travers nos programmes. Et nos programmes sont des programmes soit du gouvernement du Québec seul ou des programmes avec le fédéral provincial dans le cadre du partenariat. Et quand c'est des recherches plus près d'aboutir, ben, les pourcentages de subventions vont être un petit peu plus faibles, aux alentours de 50 d'argent public. Quand c'est des domaines prioritaires pour soit l'environnement, soit les changements climatiques, là, on va accepter des pourcentages beaucoup plus élevés d'argent public dans les projets. C'est de cette façon-là qu'on encourage les partenariats entre le privé et le public. Et puis, on pouvait bien le démontrer quand on voyait tout à l'heure l'effet multiplicateur dans les centres de recherche et de transfert qui était beaucoup plus grand, c'est-à-dire qu'il y avait beaucoup plus d'argent privé. Et puis, quand on regarde là, les recherches qui sont dans des domaines où il y a beaucoup moins de marge ou de profit à court terme, bien là, le pourcentage d'argent public peut atteindre des fois jusqu'à 90 %. Et puis, comme j'ai expliqué aussi au début, le Québec oriente surtout la recherche sur le court terme. Donc, comment balancer le court terme avec les visions à long terme, ça reste un défi là, à travailler au Québec.
Merci beaucoup, M. Verret. Il nous reste maintenant 1 minute 44, donc je vais conclure le panel. Je remercie les 4 panélistes, Mme Kim, M. Verret, Mme Stéphanie Laure-Fontaine et M. Mossol, pour leur contribution à ce panel de discussion. Je pense que les conversations ont été extrêmement riches et nous avons couvert beaucoup de domaines et beaucoup de préoccupations. We have covered a lot of ground this morning. J'aimerais vous remercier profondément et je pense que nous avons accompli beaucoup aujourd'hui et je pense que cela va servir à alimenter. Je pense que c'est à propos avec toutes les initiatives qui sont présentement mises en place. Et je pense que c'est à propos d'avoir ce genre de panel de discussion à travers la 13e conférence des politiques scientifiques canadiennes. Encore une fois, un gros merci et je vous souhaite une excellente journée, une excellente fin de panel et fin de conférence. Merci beaucoup.